What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, man. I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving and found some good deals on Black Friday. Before we jump into the full slate of NFL game picks this week for Week 12, we're going to review the three games that happened on Thanksgiving. We're going to review the Black Friday game. Going to give you the overall record that we had for those four games, and then we'll start picking the full slate on Sunday. So let's start with the most interesting game on Thanksgiving, the early window game, Green Bay, Detroit. Green Bay shocks the entire division, the entire league, with a big win over the Lions. They looked a bit sluggish on offense. They couldn't really get anything going. But the biggest storyline that came out of this was Jordan Love. He looked amazing. It was really impressive to watch. Their defense also stood out to me. Rashawn Gary had, I believe, 3 sacks. He's been playing really well. And Detroit, I don't even know what to say. They were fully healthy, I believe. Amon-Ra, Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery was back. I believe he got a little banged up early in the first half, but he continued to play. Jared Goff didn't look amazing. The offensive line was just kind of eh. It didn't look like Lions football to me, or what we have come to see this season for Lions football. Because if we take the last 30 years, it looked exactly like Lions football. But this year, it's just where we're considering them to be a contender. Didn't look like them, and so we fell to 0-1 during the first game. We picked Detroit. Dallas, Washington was a bit of a snooze fest early on. It was competitive. It was 10-10 going into halftime. Then Dallas took over, winning 45-10. Dak Prescott threw for 331 yards. Looked really good. They beat up on really bad teams, and so they continue that against Washington. And now their schedule really kicks in. They've got the next 5 games are really tough. But we moved to 1-1 there because we picked Dallas. San Francisco, Seattle. I'll be 100% honest. Watched about the first half of the first quarter, realized it was San Fran's game, knew we were moving to 2-1, and there's really nothing to be said about that. I was hoping for a little bit of a better game. Those in-division games are really fun to watch, really grimy, and it's really anyone's game in those in-division games just because they know each other so well. Geno Smith did not look good at all. The leading leaders for the passing, rushing, and receiving were all 49ers. Brock Purdy had 209 yards. Rushing leader was Christian McCaffrey with 114. And for receiving yards, it was Deebo Samuel with 79. So it was 31-13. It was just not a fun game, not the best way to end Thanksgiving. Had on a couple Christmas movies that night instead of the game, just kind of relaxing and enjoying the holiday vibe. But then Friday rolled around and we had Miami, New York. The New York Jets decided to roll out Tim Boyle, pushing Zach Wilson to the third string quarterback. We all pretty much knew where this was headed. We thought maybe Tim Boyle could jumpstart the offense. On the off chance that he could, we would get a good game. But he didn't. I think the struggles with the offensive line for the Jets have really reared their head this season. They obviously lost a few key pieces early on this season. One last week as well with Mekhi Becton. And so we all, I think, knew that it was going to be Miami's game. We had picked Miami on the TikTok. Make sure you guys hit that link down in the description below to give me a follow. I didn't post any YouTube videos for that reason. I was going to do them all on TikTok just because they were short. You guys were going to watch a whole video anyway. I figured maybe a shorter video on TikTok where you're, full off that turkey. You just hit the app, you'll see me. And so that was kind of the goal for that. So I apologize for the no posting on YouTube. But yeah, the Miami Dolphins win 34-13, and we moved to, what is that? 1, 2, 3. We moved to 3-1 during the Thursday and Friday games. So that's pretty good. We want to carry that into this Sunday slate, Week 12. And by doing so, we've got a lot of fun games. Let's go ahead and dive straight into Week 12. First game up, New Orleans, Atlanta, a division rivalry that goes back a very long time. These two teams hate each other. It's normally a fun game to watch. It's normally games between contenders. But unfortunately for this year and the past couple years, it just hasn't been the best game. I think in this instance, Atlanta wins. I think their offense has a bit more weapons that are younger. Obviously, we lost Mike Thomas to the IR, and so I think we're banged up. Derek Carr is banged up. I hope that we blow it up and we just lose the rest of the games. I don't think we will do that because we're the Saints. But I'm going to take Atlanta in this game, even though it hurts me. I think they have a better defense. I think they have a better offense. Even though their offense isn't the best, I just think their weapons will outmatch the Saints. Pittsburgh, Cincinnati. Matt Canada was fired. If you didn't know, I'm sure everyone in the NFL world knows because of the aura around him that has been for the past 2 years where everybody in Pittsburgh hates him. All Pittsburgh fans hate him. So he's gone finally. We'll see if it was him, if it was Kenny Pickett, or if it's a combination of the two. Cincinnati's Jake Browning with Joe Burrow being out for the rest of the season. Keep an eye on that, though, because it is weird. He hasn't been placed on IR yet as of right now. I saw somebody post a tweet, a little conspiracy theory gif. It is weird that he hasn't been put on IR yet. If I'm Cincinnati, put the guy on IR. Let him rest, let him get healthy for the rest of the season. You know how I am with the Bengals. I was never counting them out regardless, but Joe Burrow is the engine that makes that team go. And so with him not being there, this feels like a game Cincinnati will win, though, just because of how this division plays out. The AFC North is just so crazy. But it's a weird thing. They lose. Pittsburgh fires their offensive coordinator. Cincinnati comes in with a backup quarterback. So those feels like games if Pittsburgh was playing another team, they would win, and vice versa for Cincinnati. So I feel like those cancel out in this game. And so I'm going to take Pittsburgh just because they have some continuity with the team. And Jake Browning has not played a lot in the NFL. Moving on. Carolina, Tennessee, man, what a game. Carolina continues to struggle on the offensive and defensive side of the ball. They don't look good. Bryce Young is struggling very, very heavy. It doesn't look good. Obviously, with the MVP conversation of C.J. Stroud and how well he's been playing and how well the Texans team looks, it's really bad for Carolina right now. Frank Reich has pushed away play calling duties, took him back on, pushed him away, and now he is calling plays again. So hopefully for Bryce Young's sake, they don't fire Frank Reich and they can get it figured out, because once you fire one coach in the NFL, it becomes a revolving door. And then the odds are up against him even more than they already are now. And I like Bryce Young. I think he's a good quarterback. And so I hope they can get it figured out in Carolina. On the other end of that, Tennessee is starting their first-year quarterback who looks better than Bryce Young, unfortunately. He has his ups and downs, but he has made more big plays, has played a lot better than Bryce Young in certain situations. I think Tennessee is a team that maybe we look at and go, why didn't you blow it up this trade deadline? Derrick Henry could have been a big piece to get you some trade equity back. Also, DeAndre Hopkins, even though they just signed him in the offseason, he was eligible to be traded. And so you look at it and you go, especially in that division where it's Houston and the Jaguars, who thought we'd be saying that first off, but where it is Houston and the Jaguars competing for that number one spot and both of them vying for playoff position, you look at them and you wonder why they didn't. But since they didn't, I believe Tennessee wins against a very bad Carolina team. Moving on, Tampa Bay, Indianapolis, another game where it's two teams who are struggling a bit. Obviously, Anthony Richardson is out. He's been out for the past couple of games. There's no new news there. But Tampa Bay has been a very up and down team this year. They have the weapons. Baker Mayfield has played very well, but still just haven't been able to close wins. And I think that's just because they're in the NFL. We know how hard it is to win in this league. And I think for that reason, I think I'm going to take Tampa Bay. Also, in other news for Indianapolis, they released Darius Shaq Leonard, whatever you want to call him. I believe he wants to go by Shaq Leonard now. But he's obviously been released. That's a bit strange. I know he's been dealing with some injuries, but he's an all-pro kind of guy. I look for him to get signed to probably a contender and make some big plays down the stretch. So hopefully for him, he gets signed to a good team. Moving on to two teams who are not good. New England, New York. This is going to be this is a bad game. I think we all know what this is. This is for Caleb Williams right here. Now, obviously, it still doesn't make or break it. It's not the last game of the season, but this definitely has a big play in who gets the number one pick at the end of the year. It's very close between these two teams. New England is a team who their quarterback just hasn't played well at all this year. There's a couple quarterbacks that Bill Belichick has said everyone will play this game, meaning everyone. Mac Jones, Will Greer, I believe Malik Cunningham is also going to get some snaps. Bailey Zappi as well. Everyone on this team is going to play. I believe that the New England Patriots are evaluating who wants to be here next season and who they think can who can help them rebuild in the future. New York, I like Brian Daboll as a coach. I really do. Saquon Barkley, I really like. But the struggles of the offensive line, obviously losing Daniel Jones to an ACL tear, it's pretty bad in New York, especially with the contract they gave to Daniel Jones. Even when he was healthy, didn't look good. I'm not sure who I would pick in this game, if I'm being honest. I think I lean towards New York just because if New England is going to play everybody, that means they're probably not going to win because the last guy on the depth chart is going to get playing time as well. He's the last guy on the depth chart for a reason. Obviously, he's better than most of us, but so I'm going to take New York just for the fact that maybe they're still trying to win games. I don't know. This game is going to be really, really fun, though. This is the exact polar opposite of New England, New York. Jacksonville, Houston. I believe this game is for first place in their division. Two quarterbacks who are playing really, really well. Obviously, C.J. Stroud, we talked about a little bit earlier, is a rookie. He is in the MVP discussion at the very least. Probably won't win it after last week's 3-interception game, but I believe he still only has 5 interceptions on the season now, which is absurd to throw 3 in a game and only have 5 in total. He's played really, really well. Jacksonville, Travis Etienne has played really, really well as well. I think that I'm going to take Houston. I like Houston. I like the way C.J. Stroud plays. I'm a big fan of C.J. Stroud. You guys know how big of a fan of C.J. Stroud I am. Jacksonville, to me, though, they confuse me. They play really well some weeks, and then some weeks they just struggle on the offensive end, and it's really confusing. But their defense has played very well. And so if you look at that, you might take Jacksonville. I might have just convinced myself to take Jacksonville. We're going to take Jacksonville. Love CJ, but I'm going to take Jacksonville and kind of do a flip there. I really like CJ, though. Moving on, Cleveland at Denver. DTR takes on Russell Wilson. The Broncos have looked not good the past couple of games. They've looked better. They've obviously won the games, which is something you can't be mad at. If you're a Broncos fan, if you're winning games, even though it doesn't look pretty, you hope they can figure it out, especially on the offensive side of the ball. They've had some big key plays to win games, but they just haven't been able to do it throughout the game. Cleveland beat Pittsburgh last week for DTR's, I think it was his first start, maybe his second. Played a little bit better than his first playing time in the NFL for a real game. But I think I'm going to take Denver to keep rolling. Another in-division game, Los Angeles versus the Rams versus the Cardinals. Kyler Murray has looked okay. He's looked pretty well coming off his injury. The Rams are beat up, bruised. They did beat the Seahawks, though, last week. And so for that reason, I think I'm going to take the Cardinals. I like the way Kyler Murray plays. James Conner has also played very, very well. And so I think I look for them to get their second win with Kyler Murray back. Moving on, Kansas City, Las Vegas. Another game where you look at one contender and one team that is trying to rebuild itself. I think Kansas City wins this one pretty easily. There's not much to say about it. Let's move on to a more interesting game. Buffalo, Philadelphia. A game where Buffalo has struggled. They looked a lot better after firing Ken Dorsey, their offensive coordinator. Philadelphia does keep it rolling, though, with a win over Kansas City in bad weather and not playing their best game. I'm really impressed by Philly. I really like Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown. I like their defense. I think we're going to see another rematch of the Super Bowl last year, but we'll talk about that later. We need to keep seeing these games. I'm going to take Philly if they can beat Kansas City in Kansas City. I don't think Buffalo comes into Philly and beats those guys. For the Sunday night football game, thank goodness we have a decent primetime game, man. Thank goodness. At the very least, in this game, we get good quarterback play. Baltimore Ravens versus the Los Angeles Chargers. Lamar Jackson continues his MVP-like season versus a struggling Chargers team where Justin Herbert is playing very well. The team, there's not much we can say that we haven't already said, right? I think the Chargers have struggled for reasons we don't know. The offense and defense for them, I keep coming back to this. They're star-studded. I don't know how they don't win games. I don't know how they don't win games. Their coach has to be gone after this year. If the Chargers don't fire Brandon Staley this year, they're not trying to win football games. It makes no sense to me. Obviously, they lost Joey Bosa last game. I'm not picking them anyway. I'm picking the Ravens. They've looked really good this season. But man, we need to do a video on the Chargers and how to fix them because it makes absolutely no sense how they're 500 or below 500. I think they're like 5-6 now. It makes no sense. But yeah, guys, I appreciate you so much for tuning in. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. Make sure to like and share this video. Leave a comment of some things you guys want to see me make. I'm going to do a couple videos where it's fixing the whoever. I think the first one's going to be the Saints, just because I put out a couple polls and that is what won. So I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace out.